this. Let me tell you, there are no shortcuts. Don't even waste any time looking for them. Hard work goes with everything, and if nothing else, if you're not tall, you're not good looking, and you're not particularly clever, don't let anybody hard work you out. They start renegotiating the real Brexit terms. We'll all be back to all that. We won't be, but the sun will rise, life will go on. What I would say is there's a lot of uncertainty out there. That's when you make money.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to another episode of Inspire Podcast with myself, Karam Kang, where we bring you the leading content across business and entrepreneurship by showing you real life journeys with real life leaders across business in their field. Today we're incredibly honoured and excited because we're joined with one of the titans within business and property and real estate. He's the CEO of Real Estate Investors PLC and chairman of Wolfe, which was founded in 1983. He also has investments across business, finance, hospitality, with over £300 million worth of property assets and £200 million within annual sales. He's recently released a book called Brick by Brick, which oversees the steps that can be taken within success through property and also business in general. All profits of which are towards charity, Wolfe Charitable Trust. And within that charitable trust, he helps people from different genders, races, and ethnicities. We're joined by none other than Mr. Paul Bassi.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Paul. Good. Very good to be joined with you. And thanks again for being with us today.
Pleasure.
Right, and I know I gave quite an in-depth background there. Of course, you've done so much. Is there anything else you'd want to add that you've done or are doing at the moment?
No, that was a good summary. I'm nearly 60, so you were never going to summarise everything in a few minutes, but that was pretty good. But, I'm a working class lad whose parents immigrated here in the mid-50s, and I guess my home life, my personal life is very similar to many other, not only just Sikh Punjabi families, but generally immigrant families that were settled in the UK. So, my journey is not much more spectacular or different from others. I've been very fortunate, but, it's a well-trodden path, the journey I've been on.
Fantastic. And you touched upon that journey in your background, and I know that's something you start off with in your book, giving a background to your family from immigrants and the impact which being a Sikh gave you. Could you give us a bit more in depth about that?
Yeah, just to answer that, but the backdrop, the book that I wrote, there was never any grand goal in my head that one day I would write a book. In fact, it was done fairly quickly, fairly efficiently. I'd been asked to do a book many times, and I felt a bit embarrassed by it. I really didn't think I had anything to share, but as times move on, I felt that it was time to record the journey, not just for me, the business, but the youngsters in my family, for them to know where we came from and what's going on. And I think you also have a responsibility to share that journey with you, some of your network, the people that will be listening to this. And of course, lastly, it was a very easy way to raise some money for our charitable trust. So the book was there for those reasons. It was also quite therapeutic. And part of that therapy, I realised that actually, subconsciously, all I'd really done was gone to work and been that good little Sikh boy that my grandmother wanted to be, which was work hard, be honest, be trusting, don't deceive anybody, and, keep your head down, just get on with it. So really all I did was go to work and be a Sikh boy. And actually those principles are very, very good values upon which to run a business. So yes, we make profits. That measures us. We look after our staff. So that's like looking after your family. And then we look after our community, which is very much the Sikh ethos, and that's really where the charitable trust came in.
Brilliant. And you touched upon Sikh values which were good for business then. Any in particular that we could talk about?
Most religions are good religions, whether you're Sikh, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist. And the Sikh religion, and sometimes it's not referred to as a religion, is no different. Just being honest, being hardworking, sharing, looking after your community. all the normal stuff that most of us do. And all I did was I really didn't know any different. I just believed what my gran told me, and I treated everybody in business the same way she told me I should treat everybody in my life, and that seems to have paid off.
And back then, was it always part of the journey that you wanted to create big business in real estate, or did that come further down the line?
No, I was a fairly typical young lad. I played football to quite a good standard. I was never good enough to be professional, but I played to a good standard. I did everything else a young man does. That is what it is. The big picture came to me slowly. The one thing with Sikhs is my gran would always say, if you're going to do something, you excel at it. So I got this habit of being the best at whatever I did. If I have a car, I have a great car. If I'm going to have a restaurant chain, it'll be number one. If I'm going to have an auction business, it'll be number one. Our listed business is number one in the Midlands. I got into those habits quite early on. So the big picture was excelling. Coming from a Punjabi Jat background, we were landowners. Owning property seemed the closest thing to that. So I bought property because I felt like I had something for it. I didn't want to do things that could disappear off the end of a screen and I could go home being broke. And I wanted security. I came from a family that had nothing, who worked in factories and foundries. And the real reason why I went to work, and of course it got out of hand because it gets beyond your day-to-day needs, was just security. And I've been, that's what I've managed to get. But of course I now have that. It's taken me a decade or two to realise I had it. And now there are more interesting things to do, like charity, mentoring, watching the next generation fulfill their potential.
Great. And gave good background to property, and you're starting off and seeing the bigger picture. One thing that we like to do with our audience is give them the real understanding of the challenges, risks, and that hard work and ethic that you have to put into when you're starting a business. Can you talk to us about your startup and what it really looked like?
Right. Hard work goes with everything. And if nothing else, if you're not tall, you're not good looking, and you're not particularly clever, don't let anybody hard work you out. So you can work as hard as anybody. Nobody can take that off. So it's a given that you would work hard. And again, that's Sikh. You worked hard, that's what we did. My granddad never actually thought anyone who had a shirt and a tie did a day's work, because to him it wasn't grafting, because he was used to grafting on whether it be land or in a factory or a foundry. But to start, quite quickly I was lucky. I got this vision of where I wanted to be. And I just, it was like a sat-nav destination. I put the destination in and I just got on with it. Of course you get knocked out around now and then, but whether it was my sort of arrogant Sikh attitude, I don't know, but I wasn't prepared to allow that to get in my way. I just carry on. But I hear a lot of youngsters saying, you're in property, it's so hard now, it was much easier back then. That's exactly what everybody was saying when I was 18. Actually, it's much easier today. There's more access to money, there's more ways of getting money, there's far more intelligence around to allow you to go and find opportunities, there's far more mentors around. So, hard work, those Sikh virtues I have, practice those, but whatever your religion is will have those. But it's not any harder today, not at all. If I could argue that it's a lot easier today.
Great. And you touched upon one word that I've heard you mention there, risk, and it was another word that was within your book. Can you talk about any particular risks which you took upon, the way, and what you were thinking whilst you were taking them?
Yeah. I was in an asset-backed business. So when you're in an asset-backed business, it's not a huge risk because there are assets behind your risk. Today, I have experience and knowledge that would stop me from doing deals that I did when I was younger. I did those deals when I was younger because actually, looking back on it, I wasn't actually intelligent enough to understand the risk. So I got on with it. Secondly, I really didn't have a lot to lose. So I was never a risky investor. I'm very risk averse today, but risks can be calculated. Have a plan A, have a plan B, have a plan C, have a plan D. And if those don't work, you shouldn't be doing it. And actually, we don't take a single risk. We really don't. It might be that the end result is A, B, C, or D. It's not that their end result's going to be a negative.
Okay. And to somebody who's starting out their journey tomorrow or, a few years into it, would you advise them go out and take that risk?
I would say do all the homework you have to do for anything. Go find yourself a really capable mentor. Go find yourself good advisors. Make sure they charge you the right money, because a lot of them won't. But more importantly than the fees they want to charge is picking the right advisor. There's only one point in that book when it was published where I had the publisher come back to me and say, Paul, we want you to change this. And I used the F word when I was talking about advisors, because advisors can either make you or break you. They can have you going down a path for 10, 15 years that you needn't have gone down if you'd have had the right advice in the first place. So good mentors, good advisors, and get your big picture. Don't be afraid, and go for it.
What's your advice to anybody about getting those good advisors and good people around them?
Go and find, if you want to be a chef, if you want to be a DJ, you want to be an athlete, you want to be a businessman, go and find the best at it you can, and just respectfully ask them for a bit of advice, for a cup of coffee, and I guarantee you 99% of them will make the time for you. And that really will hopefully make sure you get the right advisors and you go on the right journey.
Brilliant. And another point that you mentioned in your book, and you mentioned obviously the long journey in property, how patience is key, and it can take 10 to 15 years to actually be an overnight success. One thing I personally see on social media channels such as Instagram and Facebook, people are always looking for shortcuts. They're trying to sell shortcuts. Can you talk about the actual real work that happens to be a success, and what's really needed by people starting off?
Yeah, anyone who's listening to this, let me tell you, there are no shortcuts. Don't even waste any time looking for them. Okay, they don't exist. I used an expression once which seems to have caught on, is that overnight success is 15 years. So people would suddenly say, God, Paul, you've done really well, or whatever. And I'd say, well, I've been doing this for like 20 years. I haven't just woken up and done really well. And the other thing which you haven't asked me that most people normally do is everyone keeps using the word success. Success is a very relative thing. To somebody to earn, and I'll use money because it's easy, for somebody to earn £100 a week is a huge success. Okay? To somebody else, earning £1,000 a week is a huge success. I know men and women that wouldn't get out of bed if they weren't earning £100,000 a day, and they don't think they're successful. So success is relative, but when you're on this journey, what you've really got to find is some contentment, some satisfaction. And where I got it wrong was I got on this treadmill and really didn't stop to look around. It was just on. And actually, on reflection, certainly with my children and my nephews, I do encourage them to sort of stop, take it time and enjoy it a little bit, because otherwise there's no limit to success. I meet other people who got a very, very good job. They might be a teacher or a doctor, hugely satisfied, hugely happy, hugely content. So success isn't just about making money. You've got to get the balance.
And you mentioned, you were on the treadmill there. When was it that you stopped, looked back and thought, hold on, I need to take some time here?
It was quite easy, really. I got thrown in the back of an ambulance because I had 2 blocked arteries. And let me tell you, I don't smoke, I don't drink, my diet's very good. There are no family hereditary reasons for me to have been ill. And that happened 15 years ago, say. I know exactly what caused that, despite all the tests that I've gone on, because they turn around and they tell you, well, you're Asian and you guys have got all this in your blood and what have you. The truth of the matter is, our being is not used to stress. We farm, we field, we cut the crop, we get married young and all, there are no mortgages. All of that stress, which I outwardly managed very well, silently caused blockages in my arteries, and that's when I realised I need to do something about it. I was also quite lucky. I'm very happily married. My wife is far more balanced than me, and actually, because I get told to do whatever she tells me to do, like most husbands, and I listen, that allowed me to get a bit more balance.
When you went to get more balance, what was it you changed in your lifestyle or mindset and health?
Right. The biggest thing was when I do goals, I used to say that if I'm going to earn a certain amount of money, lose a certain amount of weight, get the business to a certain date, size, there would always be a date. I'd have to get there by a certain date. And I was very focused. I was silently obsessed, outwardly focused. Now, if I don't get there on the 31st of the month and I get there a week later or a week before, I don't stress about it. Now, you could say, well, you're in a position to not worry about it. That's true. But I really don't think it mattered that much before, but perhaps that's what made me do what I did. But it's not good. A little bit of balance is essential.
That's one thing that really interests me personally. So say if you started with the mindset you have now around, being okay with 1 or 2 weeks, with hitting a goal. If you'd started out with that, do you think you still would have built what you've built, or would it be less or more?
Unlikely. So I think there is a period during which, like you lads are working 24/7, you're thinking about your business 24/7. That's okay for a very short period of time. When you get into your early 30s, you've got to just take the edge off that. Carry it through with your 30s. You master your art in your 40s normally. You get your rewards in your 50s. So, treat those decades for what they should be for you.
Okay. And talking about health and mindset there, do you have any non-negotiables daily, whether it's, KPIs you want to hit or meditating?
My non-negotiables are medicine. I have to take certain tablets every day. I guess my non-negotiable now is I do everything at my pace. I won't do breakfast meetings at 7 o'clock in the morning. I won't do seminars. I won't go to dinner events till 1 o'clock in the morning. If it fits into my lifestyle, I do it. In fact, I've changed my diary quite a bit. Most of the time, I won't have any appointments in my diary. Only twice a week, Tuesday and Wednesday, will I actually have appointments in my diary. And I'm far more productive when I've got no appointments in my diary than I've ever been having a full diary. So, there are some non-negotiables about being pushed around, but generally just relaxing your diary helps a lot more.
In those days which, you don't have anything planned, do you set it up as soon as you come in, or how does that look?
It's the busiest day I have of the week because I've got no restrictions. I'm totally free to speak to who I want to see, go and see who I want to see, pick up the phone to speak to a guy with an idea. I produce more activity for our business when I've nothing to do than I ever do when I'm back-to-back meetings.
That's really interesting. I'm sure people can take a lot away from that. And that also brings me back to, again, another point which you bring in your book about big thinking, visualization, manifestation. How did you used to do that, when you were starting up your business, and how do you do it today?
Big thinking, again, is relative. Somebody else's big picture, somebody else's small picture. I do a lot of visualization. I didn't consciously do visualization. I always wanted a sizable business, an investment business. I didn't actually want to work in a business. I wanted to own and manage businesses. I went out and saw other businesses that are out there today. The Richardsons in the Midlands, you've got the Caledonias in London, people who have been running investment houses for 250, 300 years. Having seen them, that was something I wanted to emulate because it's been lasting centuries, not just decades.
Great. And another part of your book is you mentioned that there's a book at home where you described what your house today would look like over 30 years ago.
Years ago, not far from here, I was in the Midland Hotel. I was a 22-year-old boy, and somebody said to me, what did your life look like in 10 years' time? Well, nobody had ever asked me that in my family. Nobody ever asked me. To me, it was, where there's a nightclub called Liberties on the Hagley Road. What's happening at Liberties this week was the totality of my forward planning. And he just said to me, well, what sort of house would you like, in the future? And I remember having this naive boy thought about a certain house in a certain place. And over the years, I've had some beautiful homes, I still have, and I lived in a lovely home that was similar to that visualisation. And then a couple of years ago, a little bit before I did the book, I just one Saturday morning went to view a house, and it was the house that I remembered from then.
No way.
And I told my wife that we were buying it, and she said, "You've got to be crazy if you think I'm living there." Anyway, it's about the only time she listened to me, so I bought it.
And is that something you advise other people doing, or people you mentor to have that visualization picture?
Absolutely, yeah. Visualizing it is one thing, and then I also think you should sort of almost speak out loud to yourself, actualize it, and it's a habit. I do a thing called Savers, which is in one of the books I recommend at the back, called Morning Club or something.
Yeah.
So you visualize something, and then you actually affirm it as well to yourself. So you visualize your big house, and then it's just a habit or a practice you can get into. I'm sure these things will do nobody any harm. They work for me, so I adopted them.
Right. And is that a daily, weekly, monthly?
When I was younger, it was a minute by minute thing, because that was the obsession. Now it's kind of once a week, or if I've got a lot on and I need to tidy things up a little bit, then I'll do that. I'm more thoughtful now than I am active, hence the less people in my diary and being more proactive.
Right. And I think with the diary, we're quite lucky to have got you in today. And another point which we see on so many social media streams is, leave your job, go follow your passion, just do what you want, leave your 9 till 5. What's your advice and thoughts on following money or following your passion?
Listen, you've got all of these things are fads. You've got to be true to yourself. You've got to follow yourself. Money, nobody's ever chased money. People think they chase money. There's a couple of us in this room here now, and if I said to you, do you want £10 million each, you'd probably say yes, but it's not £10 million. It's the things behind that. It'll be the house you want to buy, the holiday you want to go on, the life you want to lead. That's what you concentrate on. And then if you work hard and do all the other things you should do in your business, the money just turns up. Nobody's ever really chased money. They think they do. They chase the wish list, and the money follows.
Great. And on that topic of money, and the thing your book mentions is, importance of creating multiple streams of income. What advice can you do to give to people who want to create that but might be in a 9 till 5? How can they start creating different avenues of income?
I'm going to sound like I'm a scratch record, but everyone's different. If they want to go on that journey, go and talk to somebody they know who's got multiple income streams. I have multiple income streams, and they don't always work out well, but if one of them's not working out well, all the others are absolutely fine. I'm not waiting for one thing to come off, or one golden egg to come good, or one thing goes bad and it ruins my life. Having lots of different revenue streams all the time is good for you, but that suits me. Somebody else, a 9 to 5 job is really good for them. So, be true to yourself. And if you want to go on the journey you targeted there, again, go and see someone who can give you a bit of guidance.
Absolutely. And from that, when you create large sums of wealth, or not even creating large sums of wealth, but at any point in your life, it's always important to give back, help those around you. Can you talk about philanthropy work which you've done personally and you're doing at the moment?
Yeah. Let me give you the backdrop to that. First of all, a business has to make money, okay? Because if we don't do that, none of the other good stuff's going to happen. So you've got to be a good business. You then got to look after your employees in that business, because if you don't share the cake with your employees, they're not going to be around for long. So I absolutely share my cake. If we do well at the top and take big dividends out, I share it right the way down the business. And that's why I've got people who've been with me 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Having done that bit, you've also got to look after your shareholders, your investors. So let's say they're part of that bit of the team. Your end user, your customer, etc., etc. If you're not looking after him, you're not going to have a good business. That's not going to last. So once all that's done, you can now think about your community, because I think you have a responsibility to do that. And going back to Sikhism, that's one of the key pillars of Sikhism, is to look out and share and look after your community. So I found it quite a easy thing to do. So from different businesses, I shave a little bit out. So for example, if you go and eat at one of our restaurants, if you look closely at the bill, the bottom, you'll have contributed £1 to our trust. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but we're doing a few thousand people a week in a few different restaurants, plus we contribute to it as well. If we sell properties to our auction, again, we give a donation for every single property we sell. So we accumulate quite sizable sums of money, and then we will not send those to big organised charities that have got 200 people on the payroll, and targets and forecasts and budgets and TV advertising. That's not where I think I can help. We're very local. I do keep it in the local community. I obviously have a soft spot for our own community because we don't get served particularly well. So we've done everything from buying girls' football team shirts to sending a young girl who had cancer in the nose that could only be treated in America, but nobody would pay for her mum and dad to go there, so we picked that up. But we don't, I'm sharing that with you because you've asked me the question. I could give you 100 other examples. We do them because we want to do them. We don't do them for publicity and promotion and, isn't Paul a good boy? That's not what it's about. It's because we've all given somebody a gift in our lives, haven't we? Giving the gift is far more rewarding than receiving it, and that's really what we're in a lucky position to be able to do.
Right. And going back off that as well, I know we touched upon it in the introduction regarding Sandwell Valley School. Can you tell us about what you built there and what the vision behind that is?
So I'd helped a little organisation in the educational space, and it became obvious to me that the biggest problem they had was that all these young children coming from Pakistan, India, Syria, on the one hand, and then on the other hand, children who were UK based, white, black, didn't matter, whose parents were moving around, having issues in and out of prison, maybe changing their jobs, because they weren't settled. They were arriving at a school, aged 14, but with an academic ability of 10. But the school just stuck them in the class of 14-year-olds, and they came out the other end useless. So we took these kids off the schools, put them into our school, and in classes of 3 and 4, took a kid that was 14, who used to have the educational attainment of 10, to getting his A-levels on time. And of course, they come from families where that problem exists. So if you put one bright A-level kid who's now at university into a family where no one's got any education, he goes back into the family and he helps 2 or 3 more. So that school's now got 200 pupils. We've had kids go to university and everything from there. So we bought the building. We gave them the building to use on no rent or anything for a number of years. And we've supported it in many other ways as well. So that's, simplistically, that's a school, and we're looking to open a second one up.
Fantastic. And the second one you're looking to open up, do you have any ideas of where it will be?
Likely to be around Birmingham and the Black Country again.
Okay, great. Yeah. And you talk about some of the difficulties kids have, these days, obviously, with their backgrounds, and you're supporting them. One of the stories which fascinated me in your book was, dealing with racism at a time, where it was rife, around the 70s and 80s for Asians in particular. Can you talk to us about how that affected your mindset at an early age, and if it, what it did for you?
Again, the Sikhism bit of not being pushed around, not being taken advantage of, helped me quite considerably, added to which I was physically very fit. So racism, people have no idea what it was like. And I'm not into getting the violin out, but the world of then and the world of today, today there are certain words you can't use and it makes the front pages. And I got called an FM Packy every day of every week for 10, 20 years of my life, but I didn't really care. But it makes you stronger, it makes you more determined. And after a while, people see that in you, and they very quickly, all the good guys very quickly, think they just want to deal with you. They don't care whether you're black, white, brown, what religion you are. You get on with it. But racism was not a pleasant thing in the UK, and I think it's fantastic today that we're a multicultural society that's that's making a lot of progress.
Absolutely. And how important was that strong backbone for yourself in business and anybody coming up to have that toughness about them?
Well, it wouldn't have done me any harm. There were boys in my school and girls. Occasionally I used to have to, I could have been younger than them, I could have been older than them. I would have had to go and sort of step in a little bit because I was at a school that was predominantly English people, few Asian, few black people. If you let it get the better of you, it would destroy you. And we see what goes on social media with a bit of bullying. In a way that's harder to deal with. But having a background, I say to anybody, if you are getting bullied, you are having problems, speak to somebody. But I was super lucky that my gran would tell me all these stories about the gurus would kill this man and kill that man and fight with this man, and I just thought, well, they did it, then I'm going to be the same.
Obviously you've got such a big background in property. I'm sure you're well networked. Where do you see the property market going over the next 5 to 10 years, especially with the changes within like prop tech that we're seeing?
I always think fools make predictions. So where do I think the property world's going to go? Let me talk about the Midlands property scene, because there's global property, there's UK property. The Midlands property scene is pretty safe. We're so far behind the curve. London, square foot, 1,000 to 4,000. Birmingham, top properties, £400, and we're only 10% of it. We've got so much catching up to do. We've got Commonwealth Games, we've got City of Culture, you've got HS2. I think Birmingham Midlands real estate is going to do very well.
Yeah, HS2, obviously that's massive, with the investment that's gone behind it and the timelines as well. Do you think it will get done, and what impact will it have on the Midlands?
Listen, no project ever from your grandmother's extension to HS2 has ever happened on time and ever happened in budget. And I get the argument about this is a lot of money. I absolutely get that. But if we want to compete on a global basis, we've got to have infrastructure and transport of a global standard. And HS2 has to get done. And if politicians want to be in power in the future, they've got to share the national cake with everybody in the UK, not just with lots of very wealthy people in London and the South East. And they now know that they need to look after them because they won't vote them in anymore. So I think the property market in the UK is going to be pretty good. I think the UK regions will do very well. London is a global warehouse for capital. Nothing will change. I'm sure they'll come to an arrangement that works for Europe and the UK in the coming months. The only prediction I will make is that we'll have more cliff edge moments this year, just like we had last year. We've got a little holiday at the moment. When they start renegotiating the real Brexit terms, we'll all be back to all that. We won't be. But, the sun will rise. Life will go on. What I would say is there's a lot of uncertainty out there. That's when you make money.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you, because that uncertainty, does that actually excite you as opposed to worry?
Yeah, I'm beyond excited. But, do I like to buy things for half of their value? Of course I do. The good thing in uncertain times, you get to buy really good real estate. And when the markets are really strong, you can only pick up the fag ends because somebody else, if you imagine a monopoly board, when there's uncertain times and people are troubled, you get to buy Bond Street. And when things are really fine, no one will sell Bond Street. So I bought some stuff 2 or 3 weeks ago. Leamington, not far from Coventry.
Okay.
Lovely high street, really good occupiers. I think we paid about half what I should have paid for that. So it's a good time to buy if you can pick and choose, be selective. Retail is troubled, but again, amongst retail, there's some really good opportunities because everyone's tarnishing all retail the same. Go onto certain high streets, you can't move, can you? Yeah. Well, that's not troubled retail. So you can pick and choose and be selective, but uncertain times do bring opportunities.
And that reminds me of another part I read in your book where you mentioned one of your great skills is you know how to time the market. Is that something you're born with? You grow over time? Where does that come from?
Anybody can do this, right? If you drive around, but the thing is, people drive around or walk around with their eyes shut. For me, I'm at an advantage. If our phones aren't going, if no one's viewing properties, and if I look in the local paper or on Rightmove and the same properties are for sale for the last 6 months, that's not a good market, is it? Okay? If properties are being sold every day and there's sold signs everywhere all the time, that's a strong market. So all I do is look at those very simple measures and react to them. At the moment, everyone's running away from retail. The prices have gone from there to there. I think it's a good time to buy. Coronavirus, the stock market has lost a lot of money recently. There'll be a moment to go back into that stock market. I don't think it's yet. And again, you've got to be selective, etc., etc. But uncertainty, unrest, troubled times, that's when I've made money.
Do you use that commercial awareness across all businesses or just property and real estate?
Everything. I mean, we went into the restaurant business when restaurants were falling apart. The restaurant industry has gone through a restructure where we're expanding at the moment because we're getting fully fitted restaurants by a multiple with toilets, air conditioning, flooring, shop fronts, all done for you, and they've given the keys back and walked away. What a great time to go in. All that's done for you, a little bit of rebranding, half the rent you used to pay because the landlord's now got an empty shop and you've got a business. So it's, everything's about the entry price when you're investing. It's all about the price you go in at. So you've got to get that right.
If you didn't go into property, what business do you think you would have gone into?
Property just happens to be a product. I think my background of being Sikh, landowning and all of that sort of stuff probably encouraged me to go that way. My father was in the property business. That encouraged me. I'm good at marketing, I'm good at sales. I would have found something else to sell or market particularly well. So that, and today people say, what business would you go in today? I think I'll be all over some kind of app.
Yeah.
That's where I'd be sticking. But, I'd still be buying real estate because those things can go up and down. Real estate, I know every quarter we get X thrown into our bank account. It's quite nice going home one night, coming back to work and opening up your appropriate sort of pages and seeing the money come in. It's
great
nice.
feeling.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And look, thanks so much for that insight. I'm really confident that, anybody watching this could have got so much knowledge on business, real estate, great gems about how to live your life and, what to do moving forward. How we like to end each episode, we like to ask a final 5 questions. We try to tailor them from who we're speaking to. First question, you credit a lot of books within your own book. What's the one book that you would advise anybody to start off with?
I didn't know you were asking me that question, but actually there are 3 books. Okay. And I think books come along to you at the right time in your life. Because if you're not ready to read a certain book, you don't read it very long. You kind of put it down, you leave it alone. When I was younger, there's a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Late 20s, that worked for me. Late 30s, early 40s, the Good to Great series, which was Good to Great, Built to Last, How the Mighty Fall, and Great by Choice. So the Think and Grow Rich gave me my attitude, my aspiration. These books gave me all the knowledge I needed on how to structure businesses and when to fire a torpedo and when to fire a bullet and all that sort of stuff. More recently, I read a book called, I think it's called Stillness. Now, I'm nearly 60 now, and actually at this time of life, I need to have a little bit of stillness, a bit more calm, a little bit of Buddhism. So those are the 3 books that have worked for me.
I love that on Think Rich, Grow Rich. That's what I read a year before I set up my own company. Yeah. Did wonders on that. Yeah. And what's the favourite bit of property or land that you own?
I'm so unemotive about property. I love my home. Yeah. It's a lovely house. I'm having a bit of fun building a garage block to collect cars in, so that's something I wouldn't have done when I was younger. Doing all sorts of unnecessary things with it. So yeah, my home's my favourite. I have a home in Spain, I have to say, which I adore. So probably both homes.
And what would you say your proudest business achievement is? There's one that stands out.
Probably the team I surrounded myself with. I've got. If I had to go to war, I'd take my team with me. We'd be fine. Absolutely fine.
And your favourite quote to live by?
There's so many quotes. But I suppose one that's useful for your listeners. How you do anything is how you do everything. I mean, as simple as turning the light off in a room when you walk out of a room. When I walk past and I see someone's got an untidy desk, how people welcome people, just tiny little things. That's how you do the big stuff. That's how you do the little stuff. And those are the guys that really excel.
And final question. What advice would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Be in the moment. I really, until I got into my 50s, it's all passed me by. I occasionally tried, but I'm going to try for 30 seconds and I'd jump out. I don't drink, but I even bought a couple of cases of champagne and said, the next time we do a deal, we'll celebrate. So we did. We opened a bottle of champagne. I didn't drink it. I went down to my office. Everyone else finished the bottle off, and I never saw those 2 crates of champagne again. So be in the moment. You've got to, you're all quite young men. Let me tell you, I can blink when I was 18 running around a football pitch. And, now I can't run around a football pitch. So, be in the moment, enjoy whatever you're doing. And, dance to your own tune. Don't worry what anyone else thinks they want for you, what you want to do. You decide what you want to do and you do it. You work hard at it, harder than anyone else. You'll be absolutely fine.
That's fantastic. Once again, thank you so much, Paul. Absolute pleasure. And remember to like, share and subscribe. And also, if you haven't already, get the book. We haven't even covered 1% of the gems that are in there. Is there anything else you'd like to mention on where people can find you?
The book's my way of sort of sharing what I learnt. The book did very well. It was the best-selling book on Amazon last year. Enjoy the book. If you enjoy it, tell me, and if you don't enjoy it, tell me. But enjoy the book, and it's all the profits are going to a good cause.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Okay.